3 million bricks. Lifted to the top of a vertical rock. A massive granite water tank. Carved from solid stone, with no tool marks. No ancient stairways. No clear transport routes. And engineering that still works. After more than 1,000 years. This is not just a fortress. This is Sigiriya. And the real question is not who lived here, but how this was even possible. What if Sigiriya is far older? Far more advanced than history is willing to admit? Sri Lanka is home to one of the most controversial ancient sites on Earth. Rising nearly 650 feet above the plains, Sigiriya dominates the landscape like an impossible monument. Official history tells us it was built in the 5th century by King Kashyapa. But when we look closer, at the engineering, the materials, and the unanswered questions, that explanation begins to fall apart. Because Sigiriya doesn't behave like a medieval fortress. It behaves like something far more advanced. And according to ancient Sri Lankan legends, this rock may have been important long before Kashyapa ever arrived. Sigiriya, a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1982, draws thousands of visitors every day. At its center stands a massive rock crowned with an unbelievably flat summit, so precise that many wonder whether it's a work of nature, or something more. High on the rock face are the famous Sigiriya frescoes, graceful women floating against stone. Believed to be celestial maidens, their identities remain a mystery. Ancient records describe more than 500 figures once covering the rock. Today, only a fraction remains. So what happened to the rest? Weathered by time? Or deliberately erased? More than 3 million clay bricks were used to construct the summit palace. But bricks are only part of the story. Sigiriya also contains massive white stone blocks, perfectly cut, precisely fitted. Yet this material does not naturally exist in the surrounding region. Thousands of tons were somehow transported to the summit. And here's the problem. There are no ancient ramps. No evidence of scaffolding. No surviving transport routes. Even today, reaching the summit takes nearly 2 hours using modern staircases. So how did ancient builders move colossal materials through dense jungle? And lift them hundreds of feet into the air? At the summit lies one of Sigiriya's greatest enigmas. A massive granite water tank carved directly into living rock. This reservoir measures nearly 90 feet long and required the removal of over 3,500 tons of granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. Yet researchers found no chisel marks. No hammer strikes. Instead, the surface shows smooth, scoop-like impressions. Remarkably similar to markings found in Egypt and Peru. Even more puzzling. This tank never dries up. Through dry seasons and extreme heat, water remains. How did ancient builders carve this structure? And create a system that still functions centuries later? Below, Sigiriya's water gardens reveal an advanced hydraulic system, pressure-driven fountains. Underground drainage channels. Perfect control during monsoon floods. Built over 1,000 years ago. And parts still function today. Modern engineers continue to study this system. Because replicating it without electricity is still a challenge. Carved into Sigiriya's sheer rock face are markings that defy explanation. Perfectly straight channels. Cut into vertical stone surfaces where no human could have stood, climbed, or balanced while carving. Near the summit, researchers discovered deep, circular holes drilled directly into solid rock. Not rough. Not irregular. But precise. These are not the marks of simple chisels. They don't match any known ancient construction method. And this is where a radical theory emerges. Some researchers believe Sigiriya may have once used a vertical transport system. An ancient lift designed to move people, materials, or supplies straight up the rock face. If true, this would make Sigiriya one of the earliest elevator-like systems ever conceived. But that raises a question that changes everything. How could such technology exist more than 1,000 years ago? What tools were capable of drilling stone like this? What system allowed vertical movement on a near-vertical rock wall? If Sigiriya once had an ancient lift, then this site wasn't just ahead of its time. It belonged to a level of engineering history has yet to explain. At the entrance stand the massive lion's claws. But there's a detail few notice. A real lion has 4 main claws. Yet these carvings show only 3. Some researchers suggest this may not represent a lion at all. Could it symbolize another creature? A mythological being? Or something far older? Was this artistic choice? Or a deliberate clue? According to ancient legend, Sigiriya was not merely a fortress. It was the crown of an empire, built more than 5,000 years ago, long before the timelines accepted by modern history. This was the age of King Ravana. The greatest ruler Lanka ever knew. Not a demon. Not a myth. But a scholar king, a scientist, a master of medicine, music, astronomy, and engineering. A ruler whose knowledge surpassed the limits of his time. Ancient texts describe Ravana as a king of extraordinary intellect and power, born of a lineage said to descend from celestial beings, not merely rulers of the earth, but masters of the skies. At the heart of his empire stood a city unlike any other. A magnificent palace, said to be forged from pure gold, designed by Kabura, the divine architect himself. Rising above the jungles of Lanka from the summit of Sigiriya. This was not just a royal residence. It was a command center of a global civilization. And the legends go even further. Ancient accounts claim that parts of Ravana city still exist. Hidden inside the rock itself, sealed within chambers yet undiscovered, protected by the mountain for thousands of years. Texts from both Sri Lanka and India describe Ravana as the supreme ruler of the Asuras. A powerful race mentioned in the Mahabharata, known for their aerial cities, advanced sciences, and technologies far beyond ordinary human capability. This was a civilization that did not walk alone upon the earth. They flew. Legends speak of Vimanas, flying machines powered not by brute force, but by knowledge. Ravana's most famous aircraft, the Pushpaka Vimana, was said to travel vast distances through the skies, landing effortlessly atop mountains and cities. Others, like the Dandamanaraya, were described as swift, controlled, and capable of lifting enormous weight. These were not symbols. They were machines. So here is the question history refuses to ask: what if Sigiriya was designed for a civilization that did not rely on stairways? What if the builders of Sigiriya did not struggle against gravity, but mastered it? What if Ravana and his people used Vimana technology to lift massive stones, transport millions of bricks, and access the summit with precision and ease? If that is true, then Sigiriya is not just an ancient fortress. It is evidence. Evidence of a forgotten age. When Lanka stood at the center of a civilization that commanded the earth and the sky. And if King Ravana truly ruled such a world, then history has not misunderstood him. History has erased him. And this is where the mystery becomes unavoidable. If Sigiriya was built with simple tools, then why does it behave like advanced engineering? And if it wasn't primitive, who taught humanity what history refuses to explain? So now I ask you, do you believe Sigiriya was built only by human hands? Or are we standing on the remains of a forgotten chapter of knowledge? Because once you question the past, you realize history may not be telling us the whole story. If you're ready to question the official narrative, subscribe to Uncharted History. The past is not finished with us yet.